He said he loved you, but you felt it in your bones that something didn't quite match the words falling from his lips. His eyes sparkled with desire, but the next moment he vanished like a ghost in the wind. One minute he pulled you close with promises of forever, the next he pushed you away with silence that screamed louder than words, and you, beautiful, powerful, kind-hearted you, were left questioning everything, not just his intentions, but your worth, your judgment, your sanity. Let me tell you something that most won't dare to say out loud. When a man plays games with your heart, it isn't a reflection of your value, it's a revelation of his confusion, his fear, and often his immaturity. But it's also a divine mirror showing you the places within yourself that still crave external validation, still hope love will rescue you, and still believe loyalty will make someone change. You didn't lose yourself because you were weak. You lost yourself because you were hoping he was strong enough to carry the weight of your vulnerability. But now is when everything changes. Because today you're going to learn not just how to see through his games, but how to outsmart them. Not with manipulation, not with revenge, but with the kind of clarity, grace, and self-respect that turns the tables without even flipping them. This is about rising, not in anger, but in truth, about reclaiming your power without turning cold, and about finally understanding that the way a man treats you is never about you, it's about him. But the way you respond, that's where your power lives. So let's begin. Let's start where every woman who's ever loved deeply and been hurt by games begins, in that quiet moment where you first realize something doesn't add up. You remember it, don't you? That day when you sent a message and saw it marked read, but no reply ever came. Or when he posted a story looking perfectly happy while you sat in your room, replaying your last conversation, wondering if you did something wrong. Or worse, when he reappeared out of nowhere, acting like nothing happened, expecting you to greet him with open arms, like a loyal dog, instead of the radiant, regal woman you are. Let's get something straight. Confusion is not a sign of love. Inconsistency is not a charming mystery. And emotional chaos is not passion. It's manipulation dressed in a tuxedo of sweet nothings. And yet, we excuse it. We romanticize it. We tell ourselves, maybe he's just scared. Maybe he needs time. Maybe if I show him how much I care, he'll stop playing. But here's the raw truth. Men don't play games with women they respect. Let that land. Because if he saw your heart as sacred, if he saw your love as a gift, if he understood your presence as a privilege, he would not dare toy with it. So why does he? Why does a man, knowing full well that you care, act hot and cold? Why does he breadcrumb you with just enough affection to keep you hooked, but never enough to give you peace? Why does he vanish when you need him most and reappear when you finally start to heal? Because for some men, the game is the goal. It's not that he's unsure, it's that he likes the power dynamic where you're uncertain, waiting, because your waiting gives him control, your overthinking gives him validation, and your silence in the face of his inconsistency gives him permission. But you're not here to be played, you're here to remember who the hell you are. So let me take you through something deeper than just tips and tricks. Let me walk you through 7 powerful ways to outsmart any man who tries to play games with your heart, starting with the very thing that makes the game possible in the first place, the illusion. Game playing thrives on illusion. Illusion that he's the one. Illusion that you need his love to be whole. Illusion that his silence means you're not enough. But illusions only survive when you abandon your reality. So the first way to outsmart him is to wake up. Let's go back to one of the most famous psychological studies in human behavior, the Stanford Prison Experiment. What began as a role play in a controlled environment turned dark when participants started identifying with their roles. Guards became cruel. Prisoners became submissive. Why? Because the mind conforms to the role it believes it's in, even if it's not real. When a man plays games, he invites you into a role. He becomes the prize. You become the chaser. He withholds attention. You offer more. He creates doubt. You overcompensate with love. And without realizing it, you start living in his illusion. You play a role you never agreed to. You fight for someone who isn't even fighting for you. So here's your first awakening. Step out of the role. Drop the script he wrote for you. Don't chase, don't plead, don't over-explain. When you stop playing, the game dies. But stepping out of the illusion requires a brutal kind of honesty. You have to stop asking, why is he doing this? And start asking, why am I still allowing it? Because every time you forgive a disappearing act without accountability, every time you lower your standards to keep his attention, every time you doubt yourself instead of his inconsistency, you feed the illusion. But when you shift the focus from him to you, everything changes. Let me tell you a story about a woman named Maya. Maya was brilliant, educated, compassionate, a force in her own right. But when she met Daniel, she felt seen in a way that disarmed her. At first he was attentive, charming, persistent. Then came the subtle shifts, delayed responses, emotional distance, mixed signals wrapped in compliments. She found herself addicted to the highs and paralyzed by the lows. Until one day, after crying herself to sleep for the third time in a week, Maya looked in the mirror and said, "This isn't love, this is self-abandonment." That day she didn't text him back. That day she blocked his number without a warning. That day she reclaimed her reflection from his projection. He reached out 2 weeks later. Apologies, excuses, promises. But Maya didn't respond. Not because she hated him, but because she finally loved herself more. Outsmarting a man playing games isn't about playing back, it's about opting out. The moment you step off the roller coaster, the ride ends. And here's the second truth. The strongest position is indifference to the outcome. Game players thrive on your emotional investment. They love knowing that you're still thinking about them, still waiting, still hoping. But what they can't handle, what terrifies them, is when you go quiet. Not angry, not bitter, just silent. Philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You may not control how someone treats you, but you do control how you respond. Indifference isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's knowing that your peace isn't up for negotiation. It's recognizing that attention isn't affection. That consistency is sexier than charisma. That genuine love never leaves you guessing. And when you embody that clarity, without drama, without games, without revenge, he'll feel it. Because silence from a woman who once gave everything is deafening. You see, when you stop reacting, you force him to confront himself. No more distractions, no more ego boosts, just him, and the emptiness he created. But make no mistake, he may come back. Oh, they always do. With apologies, with gifts, with sudden realizations. But don't confuse return with change. Let me repeat that. Don't confuse return with change. A man who disappears and reappears at his convenience is not a man transformed. He's a man who lost control of the game and wants it back. So the third way to outsmart him is this: don't flinch when he returns. Don't confuse presence with commitment. Don't confuse words with growth. Don't confuse a second chance with a different man. If he's serious, he'll prove it with consistency, not confessions, with action, not affection, with accountability, not charm. Remember, you are not a test he needs to pass again. You are a boundary he should have never crossed. Now breathe for a moment, because I know this is deep. I know this hits places that maybe you've kept hidden. But we're not here for surface level empowerment. We're here for transformation. And transformation often begins with heartbreak. Not the kind inflicted by someone else, but the kind that happens when you finally break your own patterns. The kind where you stop asking, "Why is he doing this to me?" and start asking, "Why do I keep choosing people who make me question myself?" That's the beginning of real freedom. Let's pause here, not because we're done, but because the next steps require a heart that's steady and a mind that's ready. You've already begun the process of waking up, of reclaiming your voice, of stepping out of illusion. In the next part, we'll dive even deeper. We'll explore how to use emotional alchemy to turn heartbreak into power, how to read a man's true intentions before he ever speaks them, and how to become the kind of woman who's not just immune to games, but so deeply rooted in her self-worth that she changes the game entirely. Because your story doesn't end here. This is just where it begins. Let's begin again, right where we left off, with the truth rippling through your spirit, the kind that doesn't just awaken you but undoes you in the best possible way. This isn't about playing harder. It's about seeing clearer. It's not about revenge. It's about remembrance of who you are beneath the self-doubt, beneath the emotional knots he's twisted into your heart. Now, if you're here, that means you've already started to untangle those knots. You've stopped asking why he disappeared. You've stopped needing closure from someone who never gave you clarity. You've looked in the mirror and begun to remember, I am not here to prove my worth. I am here to be honored or to walk away. And that's where we open the next door. Let's talk about emotional alchemy. You've heard of alchemy, the ancient art of turning base metals into gold. But emotional alchemy is far more powerful. It's the ability to turn pain into purpose, betrayal into boundaries, and heartbreak into healing. Because the truth is, when a man plays games with your heart, he's not just wasting your time, he's revealing your deepest unhealed wounds. Let me explain. You don't get attached to someone because of who they are. You get attached because of who you become when you're around them. If you've ever found yourself addicted to a man's inconsistency, it's likely because on some level, his games activated a familiar pain. a childhood wound, an old abandonment, a belief that love must be earned, proven, or fought for. And that's how emotional games hook you. They don't feed your soul, they feed your subconscious patterns. So here's the fourth way to outsmart him. Turn inward before you react outward. Let me take you into the mind of a man who plays games. He sends a text, then disappears. Why? Because he knows your anxiety will do more work than he ever has to. He knows your mind will create a narrative, searching for answers, and in that mental chaos, you become emotionally entangled. But the moment you stop reacting to him and start responding to yourself, you change the entire dynamic. When he ghosts you and your first move isn't panic, but pause. When he gives you silence and you meet it with self-reflection instead of chasing. When you feel the sting, but use it to trace the wound instead of seeking a bandage, you evolve. This isn't about him anymore. This is about the version of you that needed his validation to feel lovable. Emotional alchemy begins there, not with revenge, not with proving anything, but with a question: why did I tolerate less than I deserve? That's where your power is hiding, not in decoding his silence, but in decoding your response to it. I want to tell you about Ava. Ava was one of those women everyone admired. Fierce, funny, independent. But love, that was her Achilles heel. Every time a man showed inconsistency, she felt the need to fix it. Not because she was desperate, but because she believed that if she gave enough, he would change. Then she met Liam. Liam was charming, attentive at first. Then the hot and cold cycle began. He'd disappear for days, reappear with apologies. She kept forgiving him, hoping it was just fear, hoping love would win. But one night, after yet another unanswered call, Ava didn't cry. She got up, lit a candle, and journaled the following: I am done seeking love from those who treat my heart like a testing ground. I am done confusing my empathy with permission to be mistreated. And I am done trying to rescue men who don't even want to be found. That was the night she became untouchable. Not in bitterness, but in clarity. Because clarity is the fifth weapon in outsmarting a man who plays games. Clarity over closure, clarity over chaos, clarity over chemistry. Let's pause on that last one, chemistry. How many times have you heard someone say, but the chemistry is insane, and I get it. That electricity, that intensity, that fire, it feels real. But here's a hard truth. Chemistry is not compatibility. Attraction is not alignment. Fireworks are beautiful, but they burn quickly if there's no foundation beneath them. Game players use chemistry as currency. They light you up, not because they intend to build with you, but because they know how to ignite you. But you don't need a spark that explodes and fades. You need a flame that warms and stays. So when you begin to prioritize clarity over drama, over desire, over illusions, you start to see him for who he really is, not who you want him to be. Because let's be honest, love can't exist where truth is constantly missing. If you have to guess how he feels, if you have to decipher every text, if you feel anxious more than safe, that is not love. That is confusion. And confusion is the soil where game players thrive. But you, my dear, are not confused anymore. Now let's talk about one of the most underestimated powers you have, your standards. This is number 6. Raise your standards so high they can't be manipulated. You see, men who play games are skilled at finding women whose standards are flexible. And that's not an insult, it's an insight. Most women with flexible standards are simply lovers at heart. They're forgiving, they're hopeful, they believe in redemption. But without boundaries, those beautiful qualities get twisted into liabilities. When your standards are rooted in your emotions, they'll bend. But when they're rooted in your values, they become unshakable. So here's the challenge. Define your non-negotiables before someone tests them. What does emotional safety mean to you? What does consistency look like? What behavior is an automatic no? Because if you don't decide that ahead of time, you'll end up deciding it in the middle of heartbreak. And that's when your standards become negotiable. I want to tell you about Kira. Kira was a therapist. She helped others set boundaries for a living. But in her personal life, her standards were blurry. She believed love meant understanding people, even when they hurt her. Then she dated Andre. Andre was smooth, well-spoken, intelligent. He could explain away any red flag with eloquence. He'd disappear for a week, then call crying. He'd flirt with other women, then blame her insecurity. He'd forget birthdays, then write love letters the next day. Kira kept adjusting, until one day, her best friend said, "You teach people how to treat you, and right now, you're teaching him that pain is allowed in your presence." That sentence broke her, but it also built her. Kira sat down that night and wrote her new standards, not just what she wanted in a man, but what she would no longer tolerate. From that moment, everything changed. She didn't have to become colder, she became clearer. And here's the secret: clarity attracts respect, vagueness attracts manipulation. When your boundaries are firm, the games stop. Because game players don't approach women they can't control. And that leads us to the final most powerful way to outsmart any man playing games with your heart. Fall in love with your own peace, more than you fear being alone. The only reason the game ever works is because on some level, we fear what happens if we walk away. What if I never find someone else? What if this is as good as it gets? What if I'm too much, too broken, too late? Let me tell you something soul deep. You are not too much, you are not too broken, and it is never too late to start demanding more. But you will never attract the love you deserve until you stop settling for the one that confuses you. Being alone isn't lonely when you enjoy your own company. Being single isn't sad when your peace is louder than your cravings. And walking away isn't hard when you realize that anything built on fear will never become love. Let me leave you with this. There was a woman named Imani. Imani loved deeply. She gave generously. She forgave endlessly. But after years of being played, ghosted, gaslit, and strung along, she finally did something she had never done before. She took a year off from dating, not out of bitterness, but out of devotion. Devotion to her healing, to her inner child, to her future self. She traveled, she started writing, she cried, she laughed, she rediscovered her own voice. And by the time the next man came along, she was no longer looking for potential, she was looking for peace. The moment he tried to play the usual games, Imani smiled and walked away. Not with anger, not with a speech, but with an energy so sure of herself, he couldn't forget her. That's your power. You don't have to chase, you don't have to prove, you don't have to play. You just have to remember, you are the storm and the calm, the fire and the sanctuary, the lesson and the blessing. Let him play his games. You've outgrown the playground. There's a moment in every powerful woman's life, a quiet, invisible turning point, when the ache of self-abandonment becomes louder than her fear of being alone. A moment when her soul whispers, never again. Not never again will I love, but never again will I love at the expense of myself. This moment doesn't happen with fireworks. It doesn't come with applause. It comes in the stillness, when you're done performing, when you stop begging life to send you someone who sees you and decide to see yourself. That's the moment you outgrow the game entirely. Because let's be clear, this isn't just about outsmarting him. It's about out-evolving the part of you that kept accepting breadcrumbs and calling it love. It's about healing the places in your heart that believed emotional whiplash was a sign of passion. It's about standing tall in your divine knowing that love, real love, is not a test, it's a truth. So how do you complete the transformation? How do you not just walk away from his games, but walk into a new life, a new identity, a new relationship with yourself that makes you magnetic beyond comprehension? You don't do it by playing harder. You don't win by becoming colder. You rise by becoming whole. Because the final victory is not getting him back, it's getting you back. And here's the truth, no one teaches enough. The men who play games are not powerful. They're insecure. They don't manipulate because they're strong. They manipulate because they're afraid of women who know their value. So when you stop trying to decode him, fix him, impress him, or save him, and instead sit with yourself and ask, what part of me needed his approval to feel worthy? That's when the healing begins. That's the root. And the root is everything. Because if you don't heal the root, you'll keep changing the man, but reliving the same pattern. Different name, same pain. So let's go deeper. Let's step into your inner sanctum, the place within you that has never been broken, only buried. There is a version of you that remembers the little girl you used to be before the heartbreak, before the emotional games, before you were taught that love had to be earned through silence, sacrifice, or smallness. She's still in there. She is the wild one, the free one, The bold, radiant, divine soul, who once believed she deserved the world, until someone taught her to shrink. This final chapter is about resurrecting her. Let's begin with this. Healing is not about erasing the past, it's about reclaiming your power from it. So take his name out of your mouth. Take his image off the pedestal. Take his opinion out of your worth. He was never the source of your value. He was only a mirror for your lessons. And now the mirror has done its job. It showed you your blind spots. It showed you where you abandon yourself. It showed you where you settle for half love, half truths, half presence. Now smash that mirror, queen. You don't need it anymore, because from this point forward, you're not walking into relationships from a place of need, but from a place of overflow. Let's break this down in a way no game player wants you to understand. When a woman no longer needs a man to complete her, she becomes unplayable. Not because she's hard, but because she's whole. Her self-worth is not conditional. Her joy isn't borrowed. Her peace isn't negotiated. She becomes the kind of woman a man can either rise to meet or lose forever, not because she threatens it, but because her presence demands it. Now you might be wondering, how do I get there? How do I stop attracting men who play games? Let me tell you, you stop attracting game players the moment you start honoring your intuition over infatuation. When you walk into a room and your gut tightens, but your heart races, you listen to your gut, because the heart can get high on chemistry, but the gut never lies about character. You slow down, you observe, you let people show you who they are without filling in the blanks with fantasy. Because the right man won't confuse you. He won't disappear. He won't string you along. He'll be clear. He'll be present. He'll be consistent. And he will be grateful to meet a woman who knows how to walk away from anything that doesn't honor her. Let me bring you into a story, one final example, that ties this all together. Her name was Celeste. Celeste had a long history of falling for emotionally unavailable men, the breadcrumbing kind. The poetic manipulators, the ones who gave just enough to stay in her mind, but never enough to stay in her life. But something shifted after her last heartbreak. She didn't jump into healing retreats. She didn't binge relationship podcasts. She did something radically simple and radically effective. Every morning, she sat with her hand on her heart and asked, "Where did I abandon myself yesterday?" And she listened, not with judgment, but with compassion. One day it was, "I kept a man in my life who couldn't communicate his feelings." Another day it was, "I didn't speak up when something felt off." And slowly, day by day, she began to show up differently. She stopped texting first. She stopped chasing apologies. She stopped waiting for closure. And one day, a man came along who didn't make her question anything. She almost rejected him, because the peace felt unfamiliar, but she stayed, not because he pursued her relentlessly, but because her nervous system didn't have to recover after every conversation. That's what real love does. It calms your chaos. It amplifies your truth. It doesn't make you feel like you're on trial every time you express a need. And here's the gold. You don't have to earn that love by proving yourself. You earn it by choosing yourself. That is how you outsmart any man playing games with your heart. You stop playing. You rise. You heal. You build a life so rich, so rooted, so radiant, that anyone who enters it must come correct. And if they can't, you don't cry, you don't chase, you don't even blink, because you now understand this. Your heart is not a playground. It is a sacred temple, and only those who worship with reverence get to stay. So if you're listening to this right now, and you've been crying over a man who keeps confusing you, if you've been losing sleep, trying to figure out where you went wrong, if you've been dimming your light, shrinking your soul, or doubting your worth, here's your reminder. You are not hard to love. You are just trying to bloom in the wrong garden. Let him play games. You are building empires. Let him send mixed signals. You are sending prayers into the universe that change lives. Let him go, because something bigger is coming, and that something begins with you. Take one deep breath. Place your hand on your heart. Say it with me. I release the games. I rise in truth. I return to me. Because the moment you return to yourself, you become unplayable, unshakable, and unforgettable. You've outgrown the games. Now go become the love story you've been waiting for. If this message spoke to your soul and gave you the clarity you've been searching for, don't forget to like this video. It lets us know you want more content that empowers your heart and strengthens your spirit. Drop a comment below and share your story. We're building a community where healing is honored and voices are heard. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another message that reminds you of your worth, your power, and your journey back to self-love.